And next I'm turning this end down to 3/8 diameter and 5/16 long so it can be threaded. Notice that I switched tool posts. I wanted a nice square shoulder, and I am using the carriage stop. There's just an awful lot of different steps on this project. I'm right on 375, but it's okay if you go just a few thousandths under. It'll be easier to cut the thread with a die, and I'm going to put just a little chamfer on there. That helps the die get started. I've changed tools yet again, and that's not the same cutoff tool I was using a few moments ago. This is only a 1/16 inch wide, and I'm cutting just a little bit of an undercut there for a place for the thread to complete, because you know the ends of the die are always tapered a little bit, so that'll help overcome that. How deep? Well, about whatever the depth is of the minor diameter of a thread. And I probably should wait and do this till after the thread. I might have to come back and redo it. That's all the farther I go. More than likely I got to come back. But let me switch tools now. I love this double-ended one. And I'm going to turn that diameter right there. Take the knurl off, just to balance the other side. Again, that's really for appearance sake. That's 3/32. And then I'll get in there with a needle file and break that corner. In this little die holder, I have a 1-inch diameter die that is 3/8 24. Now that's National Fine, and this is going to be a hand operation. I'm not doing this under power. And I'll thread right up to the shoulder as far as I can, and since this end of the die is tapered, I will then reverse the die and come in backwards as far as I can. And then that is the purpose of that little undercut. I may have to come back and make that a little deeper, as I mentioned a few moments ago. With the lathe disconnected, unplugged, and my left hand, I'm turning the big pulley wheel back here on the jack shaft. And I'm in back here, so I have a little mechanical advantage. And as I do that, I'm feeding in gently with the tailstock to engage the die. Once it's started, I can unlock the tailstock. But I see on this side a chip forming, so I am cutting. The thread is so short that this is no big job. And now I'm simply backing the die off by hand. And I'll reverse it again in the tool holder, but now you can see what the die looks like. And as you know, there's always on a die, it's marked start from this side, which I have, because it's tapered, and I will reverse the die in the holder, and that'll allow me to thread a little bit closer to that shoulder. Alright, and now with the die reversed, I ran it in again. I'm not going to show that. And then I blew it off, and using the nut now, I wanted to make sure that it goes all the way up and that my undercut was deep enough, and it is, because it's a good fit. It goes all the way. Alright, that little part's done. Next I will center drill, and then I'll drill 3/16 all the way through. That's the pilot, followed by this one, which is 7/32 all the way through. Now this is the 3/16. Now it's necessary from time to time to back the drill out, back the whole tailstock out, because this is a deep hole and I have to clear the chips and re-lubricate them. And now the 7/32 all the way through. Alright, the wiggler is turned around in the chuck in this position. Now I'm going to drill from this end, and this is the letter I because I'm going to tap 5/16 24, and that's also fine, so that's the tap drill size, and it's 1 3/4 deep. And I took the liberty of marking my bit with a magic marker. I know it seems crude, with a Sharpie I should say, but I'm just going to drill up to that mark. And then I'm ready to thread. Right there. Now do not drill all the way through. Hey, what do we have here? Well, we have my newly made tap follower, which you saw in the previous series of videos on how to make a tap follower. And there's my taper tap, 5/16 24. And I'm bringing the follower up right into the center hole on the end of the tap wrench right here, and that'll assure a straight thread. Now this is a taper tap. How far should I tap? Well, I'm going to go in a little ways, and then I'm going to test it with that set screw that I'm going to use in there. And I want to go in far enough such that the set screw will be flush, at least flush with the end. Not too critical because of the taper. And well, I got to put it in back gears to lock the spindle, and I'm following up the tailstock with my right hand on the tailstock hand wheel and keeping a little pressure against there, and that assures a nice straight thread. And if necessary, I'll go in there with a plug tab, but I doubt there'll be a need for that. So each time I have to blow it out and check to see if it's deep enough. I won't show all that. And as you can see, the set screw goes all the way in and flush. And remember, that just holds the spring in. As you have noticed, I never take the work out of the chuck until I'm done. So do planning ahead so that you do not take it in and out and lose your position. That's pretty important and a good rule to live by. Alright, here it is. Now I put some red dye on my prototype just to easily identify it. And you know, I got the dye all over the place. And then now it just came back to me in high school. How many times did kids spill a full container full of dye and it went all over the place, all over the floor, all over their clothes, sometimes all over me as well. So I got to the point where, well, it took me a couple of years to figure it out, so that I would never have more than just about 3/8 of an inch of dye in any one of the containers, and always a small container, not fiddling around with a quart or something where they could do some real damage. But and don't take that as a criticism. Kids spill things. Think of how many times your children have spilled something at the kitchen table. Now, I much prefer that fine knurl to the coarse one, don't you? It's just in proportion. And that's what it looks like. Pretty good finish. There's that thread that I just made. You can see about how deep it is. Now, I've been working all afternoon and I'm in need of a nap. So I'm quitting right now, and I'll see you tomorrow when I start this piece. Howdy, I'm back again, rested, and it's a new day. And I'm going to make this little sleeve right now, starting with the piece of 1/2-inch stock held in a 3-jaw chuck. Same knurling setup as on the earlier one, but I think I'll go ahead and show it anyway. And if possible, avoid the bump type knurler. I just don't have any luck with them at all, but maybe you do. All right, here we go. Going up to that white mark. It's a lot of work for just that little short knurl that appears on the finished product, isn't it? Now what I do right now is I stop the machine and I shift the feed reverse lever, and then I restart it and I'm backing out under power. Also with a little oil on there, because if there's any chips, it'll pound them into the knurl. And this is a diamond knurl. These knurlers can also be set for a straight knurl, but I like the looks of the diamond. That's all there is to it. Clean it off, take a look, it's ready to go. Now I set this up on the machine and I haven't used the machine for anything else since, because it is kind of a pain to set this up just for one knurl. That's a good looking knurl. Now within this piece in my fingers resides another one of these, and all I have to do is release it by removing the excess metal. But here too, we've got a taper, we've got some recesses here, we got holes to drill, and a hole to tap, and also a little bit of an undercut there. So there's a bunch of operations on this little piece also, and try to remember the order of operations that I'm doing this in. And I have to think through it myself too, but the piece will be cut out of there like this, because I will drill and tap from this end, then cut it off and put the taper on. Continuing with the sleeve, I'm over again at the Atlas lathe, and did I mention that this little buck chuck is extremely accurate with less than 1,000th run out. So it's nice to work with an accurate chuck or a 4-jaw chuck or a collet. But the first thing I'm going to do here, remember I'm working at it from this direction, is to center drill it. And now a 7/32 drill bit, and I'm drilling 3/4 deep, and I just again have marked the bit with a Sharpie. Next, I'm preparing to drill and tap 5/16 Again, that's fine. Therefore, I'm using a Q letter drill. That's QRST, Q. And do not substitute. It needs to be that size. And this depth, which is going to be 1/2 inch, is really very critical. I've marked the bit, but I think I'm going to use the graduations on the quill for that. And you're going to see why later. If you drill it too deep, you will spoil the piece, and the ball will not work. Now, the bottom of the hole here that is formed by the drill bit is going to be the surface that the ball rides on. In my original prototype, I used a ball end mill for that, a 5/16 ball end mill. That didn't seem to be successful. I had a heck of a lot of chatter. So again, this is kind of a critical dimension. Okay. This is a 5/16 plug tap. Little tap magic there, or what is it here? It's Easy of Vapo Tap. I don't know if they make that anymore. And I'm using my spring-loaded follower, and the headstock is in back gears just to lock it. And I'll bottom this out as far as it goes, and then I'm going to use a bottoming tap. And this is the bottoming tap. You know, I told you I don't like to use compressed air, but when I'm done tapping, and there I hit the bottom, be careful you don't hit it too hard and break it off, although it's unlikely that you're going to break off a larger tap like this. But I will blow this out so I can test fit the piece to see that it runs in all the way. And if it does not, I will counterbore it just a little bit. And the piece does fit in there and goes in all the way. And the purpose, remember, of the undercut here was to allow that to happen. But if you have trouble and doesn't go in all the way, or you don't have the right taps, use a 3/8 drill bit and counterbore it just a little bit. And that's the way the original was made as well. And now I'm going to turn this little spot here on the knurl, remove the knurl. It's about 3/30 seconds long, not too critical, just for appearance again. When I'm at the right depth, I won't hear that funny noise, which is the knurl. And now I'll break that corner with a file. This piece is so small I use a needle file on it. Also trying to break that little corner on the knurl. This sleeve is 5/8 long. But of course, as always, I'm cutting it off a little bit extra long, and you'll see why when I get to the other end. Okay, how are you going to hold this little thing without damaging the knurl? It's pretty small. So in the chuck I have an arbor, and the arbor actually is a 3/8 fine thread bolt. Now you need to find a bolt that runs true. For instance, this plated one here did not work at all, but I had a whole drawer of these, and I eventually found some older unplated ones here that looked to be cut bolts rather than rolled bolts, if you know what that means. But now putting the sleeve right on the threaded rod here, and that will self-tighten, and it's ready to face. And I will face it off the length. Point here now. Remember that I really drilled 2 holes in here. One was the Q bit and threaded it, but previous to that I had drilled this 7/32 hole. Now I want the 7/32 hole, the remainder of it, there won't be much of it, to be really only 1/16 of an inch. The reason for that is that the ball here on the pointer will drop in there, but we don't want it to drop all the way through. But if you don't drill that such that you got about or face it such that you have about a 1/16 inch, you're going to have problem here with the wobbling. And I know that's not going to show up too well. So I'm going to watch it very carefully and check it with this, which isn't particularly easy, as I face it. And I'm not going to show that because it's something that's going to take me a lot of small passes to achieve. I'd rather take a lot of small passes than one big pass and ruin it.